What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles submitted to the channel by Eddie of Doom, who's running a rather creative triple shadow Neigh-Palm team as he calls it in the Ultra League, with Rapidash, a horse that neighs, and then two Force Palm users in the back with Shadow Conkelder and Shadow Hariyama. As well as being a very creative team, this trainer actually did very well with it, gaining over 100 elo in these sets to hit veteran rank. Now before we get into the question of the day, I want to announce that the Battle of Spice World Championships will actually be going live in just a few hours time when the leagues rotate and all three leagues are available. Now unlike other competitions, this is an invite only tournament, but those of you that have qualified will have 4 full weeks to record your battle and fill out the submission form. In that time, all three leagues will be available for 2 of the 4 weeks, plus the Competitors Cup will be available for the full duration if you want to just submit in the Great League. Now I'm not going to go into more details here, but I have just made a community post about it, and the submission form should have all the information you need. This form will be in the description of all my videos going forward, and I will also make reminder community posts about it later in the week and in the month. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. What spicy Pokemon / team have you surprisingly been climbing elo with in the Go Battle League this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. So go into the first battle here, leading Shadow Rapidash into Ludicolo. So obviously not the best matchup because they are going to have access to Weather Ball, so we fire off 1 Incinerate, we then swap into Hariyama, and because we throw 1 Incinerate first, we actually force the opponent, if they choose to stay in there and throw a charge move, to throw on poor timing, giving us a full Force Palm in for free. That's going to allow us to outpace the Virizion, fire off the upper hand. Upper hand not going to get a debuff here, but it does decent damage, and at this point we're probably pretty happy with the Hariyama. We can just no-shield a Sacred Sword, come in with the Rapidash, and then fully farm them down. Now, we are actually going to shield here. This should just be another Sacred Sword, but that's okay with us. We're going for the farm down, and we're going to come out with a Wild Charge loaded. Let's see, the opponent's going to come in with a Blastoise, so we're going to go for 1 more Incinerate, and then just full send the Wild Charge. Wild Charge, going to hit for super effective damage, so the opponent uses a shield. They then swap back into Ludicolo, so once again, we fire off 1 Incinerate, and then swap into a Conkelder, where Weather Ball is going to hit pretty hard there, but we're able to tank it. Going to overfarm just a tiny amount, fire off the Brutal Swing. We actually go for a slight undercharge, however the opponent is going to no shield and we get the KO anyways. They come back in with the Blastoise, but we can just no shield right now. The opponent could not commit to a full farm down, but potentially they should have overfarmed more than that, because now we can go for another Incinerate. Wild Charge grabs the final shield, and Shadow Rapidash able to reach yet another Wild Charge. Wild Charge number 2, all shields are down, it gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we see Rapidash into a Shadow Dusknoir. So of course, this is definitely good to see it here because our backline is going to struggle with Force Palm being double resisted. We're going to look to shield the first charge move as the opponent is going to go straight for a Shadow Punch there. And now we're actually going to go immediately for the Drill Run. Of course, this is not great timing, but with an Incinerate user up against a 3-turn fast move, especially when they're pretty close to the next charge move, it is quite difficult to actually throw on good timing. And as a result, the opponent can just double shield and fully farm us down. We're now going to come in with the Shadow Conkelder. They've got a lot of energy, but we're going to no-shield the first move as the opponent are actually going to reach yet another charge move before we can farm them down. We're actually just going to fully sacrifice the Conkelder, come in with the Shadow Hariyama, and we can finally get the Force Palm farm down. They're going to have a Tinkaton in the back, which of course not ideal for us, but they are a Fairy and Steel type Pokemon, taking neutral damage from the upper hand, and we actually drop their defense. At this point, we're going to no-shield Cooler Bait, and the opponent just goes for the Bulldoze, and then they swap out into Shadow Blastoise, and that gives us a huge lifeline because Blastoise resisted fast move pressure with these rollouts. We can shield, we can look to overfarm. We're farming to 100 energy. Upper hand from this range should get the knockout, and of course they're going to come back in with the Tinkaton. They did bait with the Bulldoze, but we can still go for 1 extra fast move, go for the upper hand, taking out the Tinkaton, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we see Shadow Rapidash into Shadow Primeape. So, of course, they are going to outpace us in this matchup. However, we are going to go straight for a Drill Run here, not throwing on the best timing, but actually looking to grab an early shield advantage and then just swapping out into our Hariyama. Of course, this is an ABB-style team, so we are potentially looking to bait out any hard answers to fighting-type Pokemon for the backline so that Conkelder doesn't have to deal with it as well. But we're going to shield the Rage Fist. The opponent's now going to come in with an Ember Shadow Typhlosion. That is very interesting to see. We're going to go for the upper hand here. Upper hand is going to be shielded, and now at this point we're happy to let Hariyama go down. The opponent fires off the Thunder Punch there. I was about to say Shadow Punch. That is definitely a Thunder Punch. And actually, no, this is not Ember, sorry. This is going to be a Shadow Claw Typhlosion. Either way, we're going to come in with the Rapidash, go for the Drill Run, winning CMP. Their final Pokemon going to be a Shadow Empoleon, and the opponent makes a nice catch there. However, it's not going to be enough for them because Drill Run gets the KO. They did have some residual energy there. Maybe Primeape could have reached a Charge Move, whereas now, unfortunately for them, we're able to reach yet another Drill Run as the opponent reaches back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Drill Run, of course, gets the KO, and we take that game. Into the next battle, we see Galarian Weezing in the lead. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into a Lapras. We're going to bank a Drill Run and then swap out into a Hariyama. The opponent is over-farming massively, allowing us to go for an upper hand first and grab a shield advantage. At this point, we are going to look to match shields here as the opponent fires off the Sparkling Aria, and they will reach another Sparkling Aria. However, now that we've double shielded, we should be able to go for a full Force Farm down, and we're going to come out with a Heavy Slam loaded. So if they come back in with the Weezing, we've got great coverage here. So of course, going to go for Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam, going to connect. It does well over 50% of their HP, and it will actually force the opponent to throw some energy rather than fully farming us down. Sludge is going to get the knockout. Remember, we banked a Drill Run, so the opponent swaps out into a Gastrodon, but we can come in with the Shadow Conkeldurr. The opponent is going to reach a Charge Move. Of course, all shields are down. Water Pulse does big damage. We overfarm, and unfortunately, the new code forces us to overtap there, and we just instantly concede the match. That is absolutely devastating. I've lost so many games this season due to clicking on the Charge Move and then it just not registering and then going for an extra fast move. Super frustrating. I hope it is something that they do fix soon because honestly, it just makes me not want to play on the new code whatsoever. But anyways, into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Dialga in the lead. These aren't actually like super low elo battles either. These are like in the 2400s on the way to veteran rank, so that is crazy to see. Really cool from the opponent, but the opponent is going to come in unfortunately with a Togekiss up against our Hariyama, but we do chip once again with a Heavy Slam. We can come in with the Rapidash, look to shield once, go for the full Incinerate farm down, and come out with a decent amount of energy. Now the opponent comes back in with the Shadow Dialga, so of course we're going to shield here. We're then going to snipe them with the Force Palm damage from Shadow Conkeldurr, and Togekiss low enough where we can Force Palm farm them down there as well. Their final Pokemon going to be a Feraligatr, and we look to overfarm as much as possible. We full send Dynamic Punch, and that gets the KO there. The opponent realizing that Rapidash probably had Wild Charge, so they had to no shield, but of course Dynamic Punch gets the knockout, and we take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Empoleon in the lead. So we're going to stay in initially here, and we are actually going to allow the opponent to throw the first charge move. Of course, the opponent is going to throw on very good timing, throwing after just 7 Metal Sounds, but we can farm up to back-to-back charge moves, but the opponent actually going to make a nice catch there, catching onto Seismitoad, where of course Drill Run is going to hit for neutral damage, but now we're going to come in with our Shadow Hariyama. Now, even if they full send an Earth Power, it's not going to be enough damage to get the KO, so we're going to commit to a full farm down, and we get the perfect farm down. That is absolutely huge for us. Let's see what the opponent wants to do. If they come back in with Empoleon, I believe they are 1 away from a charge move, so we're not going to go for an extra Force Palm. Instead, throwing the charge move immediately, grabbing a shield, they swap into Dusknoir, but Hariyama still not finished just yet, as now we can go for a Heavy Slam, and Heavy Slam does about 50% of their HP. We're going to come back in with the Rapidash. We've already got the Drill Run loaded. Drill Run is going to connect. It doesn't quite get the knockout, but that is certainly game over. That puts them into range where we can just farm them down with the Shadow Conkeldurr. Actually, no, Rapidash does not go down there, so of course the opponent, realizing we still have a shield, and so they just concede the match. Into the next battle, we're going to see a shiny Galarian Moltres in the lead. We swap out immediately, assuming they're going to be on Sucker Punch, which actually makes this a decent matchup for fighting type Pokemon, because yes, of course, Fly and Brave Bird, if they're on it, are going to hit for super effective damage, but we're resisting the fast move pressure, so whilst 2 shields are still in play, it's not that bad of a matchup. So the opponent is now going to come in with a Swampert, but that's fine with us. Actually, keeping it away from the Rapidash is pretty ideal for us. So at this point, we're now going to fire for the upper hand. Upper hand probably going to grab the first shield from the opponent, and it is going to do that. But the opponent trying to commit to a farm down, they don't get there. We're actually able to reach another upper hand, and upper hand number 2 grabs the final shield. We're going to come in with the Shadow Conkeldurr. Of course, Rapidash not going to appreciate the Hydro Cannon spam, so at this point, we're going to no-shield the first charge move there. They will be reaching a second charge move, so it'll be interesting to see. We're actually just going to fully no-shield this, sacrifice the Conkeldurr. We will still have to use a shield for our Shadow Rapidash. However, we're going to come out of this matchup with a ton of energy. So the opponent not going to allow for that to happen. Instead, swapping back into their Moltres. We don't want to have to full send a Wild Charge and debuff ourselves, but Drill Run, even double resisted and non-stab, easily gets the KO from that range. Now let's see what that final Pokemon is. It's going to be a Licky, and unfortunately, we have no fighting Pokemon remaining, so that is not ideal for us. We're going to go for a Drill Run. Unfortunately, as you're going to see, even if we chip with a Drill Run and a Wild Charge, we're just not going to get there in time, and so we concede the match. Into the next battle, amazing lead matchup for us. The opponent leads with an Alolan Ninetales. They're going to throw one Fast Move and then swap out into an Ampharos, but we've got access to Drill Run, so that's a good matchup for us still. So we chip with the Drill Run, the opponent uses their Shield, and now we come in with Hariyama. We're going to no-shield the first charge move here, as the opponent is going to reach back-to-back Thunder Punches. However, remember, Hariyama has access to Heavy Slam, and Heavy Slam is going to hit for double super effective damage if they come back in with the Ninetales. Now, Hariyama, not a very common Pokemon to see in the Go Battle League, so we're going to full send it, and the opponent does not respect it. They actually just barely hang on there, which is not ideal for us, but in the end, it's probably not going to matter too much. Now, this time around, we are going to use a Shield here. Last time, up against the Gastrodon, unfortunately, we did end up over-tapping, missing out on throwing a charge move, and we had to concede the match just there and then, whereas now, we're able to reach back-to-back Brutal Swings, throw the second one on CMP. At this point, the game is over. The opponent might end up shielding. Yes, they are going to shield, but it doesn't really matter. Of course, the opponent should be getting the knockout with the Earth Power, but we can just Incinerate, farm down the remainder of their team. The opponent stays in with the Gastrodon. They get farmed down. They get farmed down on the Ninetales as well, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, I'm going to see Shadow Rapidash into Shadow Ampharos. So this is going to be a positive matchup for us because we do have access to Drill Run, and we can throw this immediately. Drill Run is going to be shielded. We're now able to swap into a Hariyama, and we don't really need to shield anything here. Of course, they could be on, like, Focus Blast. They are on Focus Blast. Oh, my God. That gets the clean one-shot there. That is obviously not ideal for us, but we can now come in with our Shadow Conkeldurr, probably commit one shield just to play it safe, and then go for a full farm down. It's likely going to be like a Brutal Swing now. Yes, it is, so that is unfortunate, as it is resisted damage, but either way, we are going to see a Tinkaton coming in, so we're now just going to farm up a ton of energy and fire off the Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is going to be no-shielded by the opponent, and they go immediately for a Bulldoze. That is absolutely fine with us. We can tank that pretty comfortably. We're now going to look to overfarm a little bit, swap into our Rapidash, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Galarian Moltres. Now, we overfarm as much as physically possible. We fire off the Wild Charge. Wild Charge grabs the final shield. We come back in with the Conkeldurr, and we need to be smart about how we overfarm here. We need to overfarm enough to reach back-to-back charge moves, but the opponent able to reach another move here, and so we just concede the match. I would prefer if we play out at least the end of the game there, not end the recording so quickly, just because it does give me the opportunity to sort of like have a little break between that battle and the next battle. But either way, into the next battle, we are going to see the opponent's going to be safe swapping into a Charizard. Unfortunately, we don't really have the best response, so we do stay in, we full send the Wild Charge, we then come in with Conkeldurr, just looking to fully sacrifice it. But before that, we will reach a Brutal Swing, and Brutal Swing is actually going to grab the final shield. Now, we're still in a tricky situation. However, the opponent very likely to just go for another Air Cutter here, but we're going to shield anyways, as the Incinerate damage will register, and now we can go for a Drill Run. Drill Run, single resisted there by the Fire and Flying typing, and it will get the KO. Their final Pokemon is going to be an Umbreon, so we swap out into Hariyama, and we will force them to throw some energy. Could be a Psychic. It is just going to be a last resort there, but they're now going to swap out into a Tinkaton, and honestly, that's not too bad for us, as of course, we can no-shield. Again, they're just going straight for Bulldoze. I don't know if they understand that Bulldoze just doesn't do much damage at all. You might as well at least farm up to the Gigaton Hammer if you are going to bait. Whereas now with Hariyama, we can actually reach back-to-back upper hands here. Second one will get the KO, and whilst we are incredibly low, of course, Snarl is resisted damage here. These Force Pumps absolutely chunking this Umbreon, putting them into range where likely a Drill Run will get the KO. Drill Run, nope, never mind, doesn't get the knockout there, but a second Drill Run will certainly do the job. We've now got the energy for it, so of course, going to shield the last resort. We could have gone for a Wild Charge if we wanted to, but either way, Drill Run number 2 takes out the Umbreon, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Rapidash into Mimikyu. So this is going to be the first Ultra League Mimikyu I've seen outside of the Fantasy Cup, I believe, and of course the opponent does have the opportunity to no shield and then just take no damage whatsoever. The opponent is going to opt for that, but of course that drops their defense by 1 stage. These Incinerates are now starting to really add up. So of course we're also going to look to shield as the opponent fires off a Shadow Sneak, and the opponent, unfortunately, we do end up over farming there again because the charge move just does not register. Super frustrating. we have to go down both shields, but now they're going to swap out into a Feraligatr. We've got a lot of energy. Wild Charge gets the one shot. They do not respect the damage. We're now looking to swap out immediately into Hariyama. Of course, not expecting the opponent to come back in with the Mimikyu. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Raikou, and they're on Thunder Shock. That means they're very fast to reach the charge move. The opponent full sends Wild Charge, but we actually barely hang on. That is huge from Hariyama, because now we can go for the upper hand. Upper hand is going to grab the final shield. And now, of course, we're going to have to come in with our Conkeldurr. Now, Conkeldurr, unfortunately, I don't think will live a Wild Charge here, even from full health, but we have got them incredibly low. So at this point, of course, all shields are down. Wild Charge does get the one shot, but we come back in with the Rapidash. They swap back into Mimikyu, but they just transfer the damage, and we just farm them down anyways, and we're able to take that game. Is the next battle literally the best possible lead for this entire team? The entire team has double super effective fast food pressure with Incinerate and Force Palm, two of the hardest hitting moves in the entire game. But let's see if this is going to be a comfortable matchup for us, because of course, since we are triple strong into their lead, they likely have a very strong Pokemon into our backline, and that is the case as they're going to come in with a Jellicent, which of course resists everything from Hariyama. We go for the upper hand, probably looking for a debuff, which we end up getting, but still that's not going to help us all that much. At this point, we're going to no-shield here. The opponent full sends a Shadow Ball. We're going to go for the Brutal Swing straight away, but the opponent makes a really nice call there, predicting that we would just throw immediately, catching the Charge Move onto Sandslash, and unfortunately we get a one-turn swap as well, which means we don't get the farm down before the opponent is able to reach a Drill Run. That is certainly not ideal for us. We're going to come back in with the Rapidash as they come in with the Jellicent, but they've still got a 2-shield advantage. We're now going to farm up to back-to-back Drill Runs here. However, unfortunately, Conkeldurr did not bank a charge move, so whilst yes, we can farm up to back-to-back Drill Runs, fire both of them off, likely grab both shields here. The opponent can now just look to overfarm, and the opponent actually going to throw just before we reach that Brutal Swing. Rapidash, still not another charge move just yet, so unfortunately, they can fire off the next Surf, and again, we end the recording very quickly there. So into the next battle, we are going to see Malamar in the lead. So at this point, we are likely going to shield. And of course, Sideways would do big damage into our backline, but we might have the opportunity to try and catch a foul play. Either way, we're going to farm up to 100 energy, fire off the Drill Run, and that is going to be a CMP tie. So at this point, we are going to look to use our first shield there, sorry, our final shield there, but we've now got back-to-back Drill Runs once again. So Drill Run number 2, going to be no-shielded. And let's see what they want to do. They're going to come in with Feraligatr, and again, we are just going straight for that Wild Charge there. No messing around. Wild Charge, again, not shielded. Did people forget about the Rapidash Community Day? We're going to see a Tinkaton as the final Pokemon. Unfortunately, we're not going to reach a Dynamic Punch, but the opponent ends up shielding anyways. At this point, that's really good for us because, of course, the opponent can now go for the Gigaton Hammer. That is going to get the knockout. But they're not going to be able to farm down the Rapidash. So if they come back in with the Rapidash, we can probably force the opponent to throw some energy. And actually, our Switch Talk is popping up just in the nick of time, which means we're able to catch a Bulldoze most likely, which isn't going to do too much damage. Yes, they do end up dropping our defense. However, they still need to full send a Gigaton Hammer, which means we're able to outpace them. Upper hand gets the KO there, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Rapidash into Florges. So this is going to be a tricky Pokemon for this team to deal with because, yes, they're going to have Chilling Water on the Florges, and as well, they're going to have Fairy Winds and potentially like a Moonblast or a Disarming Voice for the backline. Now, anyways, we are going to farm up to back-to-back Drill Runs here. Drill Run number 1 is going to be shielded, and we can fire off the second one straight away. Now, remember, they did just debuff us, so unfortunately, that doesn't do nearly enough damage. We're going to swap out into Hariyama. They farmed up to the Moonblast, but they are just going to bait with another Chilling Water. They're going to come in with a Corviknight, and we're not going to throw straight away. The opponent actually does throw immediately, allowing a full Force Palm in for free, and that's now going to mean that we can very comfortably outpace them to back-to-back upper hands here. First one is going to connect. It does not drop their defense, I don't believe, but we can fire off the next one straight away, and this will get them very low. This time around, we do drop their defense. Of course, they throw straight away once again. Air Cutter gonna get the knockout, but now we can come in with the Rapidash. Incinerate gets that full farm down, and we are going to see a Virizion coming in. So we're actually able to bank a charge move there, swap out, transfer the damage onto Shadow Conkeldurr, shield up the Leaf Blade. We have to watch out for a potential catch, but the opponent not able to make it. So now we're going to bait with a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded. That's a CMP tie as well, but we should tank a Leaf Blade here. The opponent, are they going to try and opt for the catch? No, again, they're not going to, which means we go for Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is resisted damage, but it gets the knockout from that range. And of course, because we banked that draw run, we can now throw it into Florges coming back in, get the KO there, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we'll see Shadow Rapidash into Shadow Dusknoir. So we've seen this matchup already here. This is a little bit awkward for us because by the time the opponent throws some energy, we're going to be very close to 100, and it does make throwing our charge views a little bit awkward just based on the timing, but the opponent actually swaps out there, so we're just going to bank the energy, come in with our Conkeldurr, and the reason we come in with Conkeldurr is because if they come back in with the Dusknoir, they can't really commit to the farm down because we do have access to Brutal Swing. But the opponent is actually instead going to come in with a Tinkaton, and now we're going for the Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is going to deal big damage. We then swap into our Rapidash, and we're going straight for Drill Run. Drill Run is going to be shielded. They swap back into Dusknoir, but that's fine with us. We can go for yet another Drill Run, grab the final shield from the opponent. However, the opponent is going to be able to fully fast move farm us down. Now, this is quite tricky for us because the opponent has so much energy on the Shadow Dusknoir. We're going to come in with the Hariyama, of course, and ideally, we are going to try and look to make a catch here. So the opponent fires off the Shadow Punch. We're going to swap out, and we're able to pull off the catch. That is absolutely huge for us. The opponent fires off that Shadow Punch. We can now come back in with the Hariyama, and we're actually going to no-shield this because we believe the opponent will reach another charge move, but they full sent Dynamic Punch this time around, and they swap back into Tinkaton, and unfortunately, that is a really nice play on the opponent's end, and so we have to concede the match there. But into the next battle, I'm going to see Nidoqueen in the lead. So interestingly, we are going to swap out of that matchup, even though we do have access to Drill Run, and actually it's probably a fairly decent matchup for the Rapidash. But now, of course, we swap into Hariyama, where our fast moves are resisted. Upper Hand is also resisted. We have to go for Heavy Slam, and that really doesn't deal that much damage. So yeah, it's quite interesting there. I think probably staying in with the Rapidash was the right play, but we do at least reach a last second upper hand here. So honestly, not that bad from that Hariyama, getting them very low there in the zero shield scenario, but they will reach a last second charge move. Anyways, we're going to no-shield as we realize it can just only be a Poison Fang there. So we're going to no-shield that. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Lapras, but we've got access to Wild Charge. So we are going to look to overfarm here as the opponent is going to go straight for that Sparkling Aria. That's going to grab our shield there, but we can now farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges, and we are absolutely full sending. The opponent going to call a bait there. That is huge for us as we get the knockout. They're going to come back in with the Moltres, and again, we are not messing around here. Wild Charge grabs the first shield from the opponent, but can the opponent now outpace us to back-to-back charge moves? It's going to be pretty close here. We likely need to go for a Brutal Swing bait, and we are going to do exactly that. So, of course, Brutal Swing should be grabbing the final shield, and it is. However, the opponent's still able to outpace us. Now, can Rapidash reach another charge move here? This is going to be super close. Rapidash able to get there, but not only getting to the Drill Run, reaching another Wild Charge. Wild Charge, super effective damage, takes out the Moltres, and we're able to take that game. Now heading into, I believe, the final battle of this video, leading into a Kyurem. So Kyurem, obviously, in its alternate form is very strong in the Master League, but actually I think the regular form is probably the best for the Ultra League. Now, we're met with a Tinkaton. Honestly, not the worst matchup for us. They do bait with a Bulldoze. However, we're still in a decent position here as we can force a shield back from the opponent, as the opponent is going to shield the upper hand. And here you can see we're trying to catch a charge move onto our Rapidash. Doesn't work out for us, but they bait with another Bulldoze. And that's fine with us because we can now commit to the full farm down, and we can actually reach another upper hand before they fully farm us down here. So, really nice play from that Hariyama there. We go for upper hand. It doesn't debuff them, but that's okay. We can now come in with the Conkeldurr, as of course, Rapidash is not going to appreciate the damage from a Mud Bomb. They fire off a Discharge here, so we're going to look to swap out and try to catch another Discharge. Doesn't work out for us, unfortunately, as the opponent is going to full send that Mud Bomb, but they swap back into Kyurem, and going straight for a Drill Run. So, of course, Drill Run going to hit for neutral damage. That puts them into range where we can probably farm them down with the Conkeldurr. Likely just shield this up up here, play it safe. The opponent gonna go for a Glaciate, of course debuffing our attack stat, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Stunfisk is just so low that even debuffed, Brutal Swing will grab the final shield, and a second Brutal Swing should be enough damage here to take out the Unnerving Stunfisk, and we're able to take that game. So that battle was from the final set, and as you can see, they are able to hit veteran rank. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.